Oh, hello folks, this is Steve AB4L. Now I hope what I'm going to talk to you about doesn't sound too strange. All through my life there's been all of these coincidences that happen to me. And they don't quite happen on a daily basis. Now what I'm going to show you, I wonder, do things like this follow you around too? Nothing in this episode is a promotion nor is a recommendation. So I've got my browser open, I'm recreating. And I'm getting ready for bed soon. And the end of my day, I like to check the news. So I might wonder, there are two news pages at North Carolina TV stations that I look at almost daily. WFMY in Greensboro and WRAL in Raleigh. And I didn't live very far from WRAL, which is next to the North Carolina State University campus. So you say WRAL, and I always click on local news. I want to know what's happening in Raleigh. Continue without supporting us. Car flips, crashes next to train tracks in Cary. St. Aug's University interim president resignation prompts more uncertainty. I've made a couple of videos about what's happening with St. Aug's, but I haven't followed them lately. So I get down to here. Raleigh Road reopened after hit and run driver brings down power lines. And for some reason, I clicked on it because I was curious where. I'm not going to play the video. Speed bump 25 miles an hour. There's a tree. He hit the power line here. There's a brick wall here. Dixie Trail in Raleigh. I used to live on Dixie Trail. When I first came to North Carolina to work at NC State, I lived on Dixie Trail, just a little north of Hillsborough Street. Dixie Trail is reopened after a driver hit a power pole on Sunday, bringing down power lines and closing a section of the road. Before 7:45 a.m., the police posted on the Facebook the small segment of Dixie Trail is closed between Bedford Avenue and Van Dyke Avenue, just north of Hillsborough Street. Hillsborough Street in West Raleigh goes from the middle downtown out to the fairgrounds and headed toward Cary. It's a main road. It goes by NC State. It goes by a couple other important places like the fairgrounds. According to police, a driver ran away from the scene after crashing into a power pole. Only one car was involved and no one was injured. And they get the power pole back up. Dixie Trail, Raleigh, North Carolina. No, we're not interested in the section north of Wade Avenue. We're going down here. Here's Hillsborough Street, and this is part of, like this is the D.H. Hill Library. This is a part of NC State. There's Hillsborough. These things were built, this was just built around the time I left. We're interested in this road here. The Friday Olds Elementary School is right there. There's Bedford Avenue at that corner right there. And Van Dyke is right there. So the power pole was between these two. There's some brick. There's some brick here, so it could have been on this side. It could just as easily have been on this side. Okay? There's the Fred Olds Elementary School there. This is the Forest Hills Baptist Church in this building in the Fellowship Hall way back for a while. The Raleigh Amateur Radio Society used to have their monthly meetings. Just need to go a little bit further. Now down here is Hillsborough Street. And this is what I mean about following me around. When I came to Raleigh, I lived in the apartment up here in the loft. And then a while later, I moved into this house, sharing it with a graduate student from the Netherlands. I even had a 10-meter beam up on the roof of this one. It's not that far from that news article. So what is it that I'm just scrolling down the local news in Raleigh, and for some reason, because it doesn't mention the street, but for some reason I clicked on that, and it's 2.5 blocks from where I used to live. Do these things happen to you? Do these things follow you around like that? I know it's a little stretch, but Steve AB4L. Just having fun. Saying see you at 73. Folks, I started to close the computer down, then I had a thought. What I was saying about, does it follow you around? Do things follow you around like that? Let me show you what I mean. Let's go back to Dixie Trail. I said I had a 10-meter antenna on this house, on a rotating beam. And back then, this was in around 1990, we'll say, 10-meter band was really open. And I remember making a contact with an American missionary at the very southern end of Chile in South America, all the way down. He's a missionary, but also a ham radio operator. And then, I don't know, it was a week later, 10 days later, I talked to him again. And somehow it came up, where do you live? And I said, in Raleigh. And he said, where? I said, Dixie Trail. He said, Raleigh, Dixie Trail? I'm going to invite you to come and meet me and my family in about 10 days. And I went, what? He said, yeah. Now pay attention. Remember where I mentioned the church? Remember I mentioned the church? This Baptist church was sponsoring him and his wife and family as missionaries in the southern end of Chile. And when he and his family got here, and they were staying for a few days in an accommodation, because you can see that the church is a large property, staying in an accommodation here, I came up and visited them in their temporary apartment before they moved on to their next missionary location overseas. What's the chance of that happening? Okay? Just like I said, for no reason that I know, as I'm reading down the local news in Raleigh, car hits a telephone pole, and just out of curiosity, I click on it to see where it is, and it's 2.5 blocks from where I used to live. That's the kind of thing I mean. Does it keep happening to you? Because it keeps happening to me. Steve A. Yeah, just having fun. Gonna go to bed. Saying see you at 73.